Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my latest live stream. This is Livestream 27. My name's Simon Whiteley. I'm a systems safety engineer and accident analysis consultant, specializing in STAMP, STPA and CAST. And today we're going to continue our live stream series talking about STAMP, STPA and CAST through the example case study of the Boeing Starliner Propulsion Anomalies incident. And as I said, this is live stream 27 of the series. We're getting close now to finishing the report. It is quite large. It's 311 odd pages. And we've finished the main body of the report, and now we're working through the appendices. And I've got 3 live streams, including this one, scheduled for this week. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we will finish the report this week. And then once I've finished that report, I'm going to send an email to my waiting list, which if you haven't already joined, please visit my website, whiteley-safety.co.uk, or click the link in the comments to essentially join the waiting list for a free workshop. So if you visit my website, click this link, free workshop, stick your name and email address down there to join the waiting list, and I will make you aware. I'll send you an email when I'm going to run the live workshop, where it's an opportunity for you to come along, ask questions, get some clarity on what STAMP, STPA and CAST is all about and how it applies in your particular context. And of course, we're going to talk about the case study and what we've learned from all of these videos. So this is, as I say, this is live stream 27. I've got 28 and 29 this Thursday and Friday. So if you haven't registered for those, be sure to click register on LinkedIn. Okay, and of course, if you need help and support with STAMP, STPA or CAST, please, go to my website, click this button. I need help now. Send me a message. Let me know what the problems are, and we'll set up a call and see how I can possibly help. Fantastic. Okay, so last time in the previous episodes, we got up to appendix. There we go. So we completed appendix A, C, D, and E. Appendix B, I talked a little bit about that, but it wasn't really that sort of exciting, so I've sort of skipped over that. If I decide I need to go back to it, then I will do. But today we're going to focus on Appendix F, Investigation Team Chartering Memo, and then we're going to see how far we get into Appendix G. So let's see how we get on. But yeah, of course, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, compliments, commiserations, you're welcome to type in the chat and let me know what they are, and I'll get to them as quickly and best as I can. There is a delay of about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, depending on whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook Live. But please stick your comments in there. I'll stick them on the screen and we can have a conversation. So yeah, fantastic. Let's just see. The audio seems to be working. We've got some levels going up and down. The internet seems to be working, so I think we should be okay. Let's increase the lighting a bit. Surely that's not as bright as it can be. That's interesting. Okay. Right then, let's get stuck in. So this is Appendix F. This is the Investigation Team Chartering Memo. There we go. So this is from NASA headquarters. Reply to the attention of the Space Operations Mission Directorate. So if you remember from the previous sessions, that was SOMD. So let's just go back up here and we'll grab SOMD. Where is it? There we go. There's SOMD. Let's copy that, take it down here so we can remember better. There we go, SOMD. pardon me, and it's from the Associate Administrator, which, pardon me, that was in the list, wasn't it? There we, excuse me, oh, no, we didn't want to do that. Associate Administrator, that's what we wanted to do. There we go. So we'll stick that on there. Space operation. So it's from the Associate Administrator to the distribution list. So who is the distribution list? I'm presuming this is the distribution list, and it's very helpfully blankety blanked. So we don't know what that is, which is fair enough. I mean, it would have been nice to know which organisations, not necessarily individuals, but it would be nice to know what organisations this went to. Okay. So let's have a look. Now, the reason I'm sort of emphasising these entities and thinking about, well, are they candidates for inclusion in our control structure model, is because this chartering memo is essentially a control action, a type of control action. Let's just steal my jigsaw piece. There we go. Let's steal this. If you've not already watched my live streams, this might not be familiar with you, but this is essentially what I call a jigsaw piece. It's essentially a model of a control loop that gives us a structure to think about these problems and how they actually look. You know, some of the issues that they might have, we can identify by looking at things through the lens of a control loop. So in this case, we've got a controller, and it says from, so Associate Administrator. So if they are the, where have they gone? Let's say, for argument's sake, that they are a type of controller, and they provide, they are essentially the Associate Administrator of the Space Operations Mission Directorate. And they are essentially providing a control action to the distribution list in this case. And they're basically saying, hey, these are the things we want you to do. These are the things we don't want you to do. Crack on with it. There we go. So, of course, if this instruction, this control action, is constrained in some way, which I think we're going to see some evidence of that in a minute, then, of course, the investigation team, whoever they are going to necessarily be constrained in what they are required to look at. And so there's a potential bit of tension between what should necessarily be looked at and what the Associate Administrator, whoever they are, or whatever office that is, has decided. For whatever reason, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, be conspiratorial or anything like that. I'm just saying logically that is the control action. And so the controller that receives that has to fulfill what that control action essentially directs. Now, of course, I imagine, and I think there is a mention of a procedure, a NASA procedure for how to do these kinds of investigations. And so that will also be implicit in this, either directly in terms of what this letter says, that procedure will constrain what this letter directs, or it may be that the letter says, just follow this process. These are things we want you to look at, you know, weapons live, you know, go and shoot what you want. So the procedure might affect the distribution list or the investigation team themselves. But the reason I'm showing you this is control loop is just to get you to think about things in terms of, well, whatever it is you're looking at in whatever industry you're working in, ask yourself the question, who or what is the control process in this situation? Who or what is the direct controller of that situation? What control actions can they provide? Did they provide if you're looking at a real incident? And of course, what decisions were they making? What beliefs did they have? What was their mental model or process model if we're talking about a piece of controlled technology? And of course, logically, what was the feedback? What sensors were involved in this? Were there any interactions from elsewhere in the control structure? So this really does help you to start to unlock lots of ideas, lots of possibilities. Okay, so let's continue. Let's keep going then. So let's make it big enough on your screen so you can see it. So I've already highlighted this was Valentine's Day 2025, and it's come from Washington DC, NASA headquarters. Okay, Space Operations Directorate to the distribution. So I'll just highlight these as candidate controllers for inclusion in my control structure. So distribution, at least one of those is definitely going to be in the control structure. The associate administrator may well be in the control structure, or we might decide to abstract it and just write NASA Space Operations Mission Directorate. And the subject is transition to program investigation team. So they could be candidates for inclusion in the structure. For Starliner, propulsion anomalies in International Space Station proximity. So just looking at those, elements in this subject line. The program investigation team are part of the response and recovery feedback part of the control structure, logically. Starliner is the operational system, and that's going to have some operational people or organizations, operational control structure. It will also have a design and development control structure, which will incorporate testing and qualification. And then, of course, the International Space Station as an entity, as a system in its own right. So that will, the proximity of the Starliner and the interconnections between the Starliner and ISS is something we might want to think about as part of the control structure. I think it quite certainly should be. And then, of course, that has got an operational control structure. And the Starliner operational control structure and the ISS operational control structure will at some point have to have some type of interactions, decision-making, feedback, all of that good stuff. And then, of course, the ISS itself will have its own design, development, qualification, and test control structure. But I don't think that part of the control structure is relevant for this investigation. As far as I can tell, this is just a Starliner anomaly issue. There's not a technical ISS issue. There might be questions over ISS leadership and how they interacted and made decisions, such as, giving permission for the Starliner to approach and dock with the ISS. What was involved in that decision making? Were they aware that the Starliner was not a qualified spacecraft, and there was lots of open questions over that? Did they know before launch was the case? Did they intervene in the launch? Were they consulted in the launch decision to go? Were they a stakeholder? I don't know the detail of that yet. What we've read so far in the investigation report doesn't give a clear picture whether that was the case or not. But we might find out in the next section of this appendices, because the next section of this appendices is basically an investigation report in its own right. So this report is really 3 reports rolled into one, with the Boeing root cause analysis and corrective action, RCCA, sort of summary report at the very bottom of this, but it's only a few pages, so it's not really telling us that much. Well, we need to read it, but 2 or 3 pages isn't really saying much, is it? Okay, so with all of that said, just to emphasize this, the reason I'm banging on about this is I'm trying to drill into your brain the natural inclination to ask the question, who or what is the control process? Who or what is the controller? And how do they fit in a control structure? How do they interact with each other? At least logically, how should they? How could they? How might they interact? What those control actions and feedback might look like. And then as we go through the report and we're reading it and consuming it, or if you were doing a real investigation and talking to people and reading documents and consulting SMEs, you're trying to build this model of a control structure in your mind, and it helps you to not only structure the information and remember it and understand it, but it also is helping you to see where you need to ask questions, where you need to go and get evidence or do some analysis or talk to a witness or talk to an SME, for example. And this is the main benefit of using these approaches. It really gives you the ability to think and understand your problems that much more detailed. Okay, right, let's keep going. This is a bit blurred, and it's because the source material is a bit blurred. In fact, I'll just jump to this at the back so you can see it is a bit blurred. It's not just my screen. And this is the challenge with using PDFs. Encoding things in PDFs, it's not that great. Yeah, there we go. You can see it's a bit blurred and a bit awful. And so when you're creating your PDF reports for public consumption, please make sure that they're good quality. And also with OCR, optical character recognition, so we could do word searches. That would be really helpful. And if there's anybody watching from the UK Ministry of Defence investigation branch, please, please use PDFs and OCRs, not just pictures, because it makes it so much harder to get through them and read them and learn from them. But anyway, here we go. Let's go. Enough talking. So after the initial launch attempt, so there was an initial launch attempt. There was a first one. During June 2024 crewed flight test of Starliner, the aircraft experienced several service module propulsion system anomalies, i.e. helium leakage and underperforming reaction control system engines, that the NASA Crew Commercial Program, and Boeing teams began investigating immediately. Fantastic. After docking during the mission. So it was after docking. They investigated after docking. So they made a decision to dock before they knew what was going on. I mean, that's interesting. I'd not realised that was the case. I thought that they'd investigated stuff, tried to diagnose things before they approached the space station. Anyway, let's just keep going. This is just a short letter. It's not supposed to explain everything. The investigation was focused on the execution of the remainder of the mission, including undocking from the ISS. Operations in the proximity of the ISS, execution of the Starliner deorbit burn, service module separation from the crew module, following the deorbit burn, and service module disposal with implications to public safety. This in-flight investigation was guided by the high visibility close call approach. High visibility close call approach outlined in the NASA procedural requirement MPR 8621.1 Delta due to the high visibility of these failures with potential implications to the ISS Starliner crew and to the public safety. Okay, interesting. Prior to launch, so yellow for time, prior to launch, a service module propulsion system helium manifold was found to be leaking. Joint NASA and Boeing teams reviewed worst case loss of helium pressurant capability and concluded the risk of subsequent failures was sufficiently low and that the capability to complete the mission was sufficient to proceed to launch. Okay, I mean this bit here about the risk of subsequent failures. You know, we're talking about probabilistic jiggery-pokery there, an engineering judgment. Okay, after launch, additional helium system leaks. So this is yellow, so after launch. Additional helium system leaks were detected in free flight. As well as post-docking to ISS, resulting in a total of 6 known manifold leaks in the helium pressurant system. These helium system leaks resulted in degraded capability for controlling pressurization of propellant during the mission and heightened potential for an increased risk to the control of the spacecraft for return. I mean, the decision to do that is something that an investigation, maybe not this one, but an investigation should go and look at. You know, what information did those decision makers have available to them, and why would it make sense to go ahead with this decision, especially given that things got worse during the mission and threatened the degree of controllability of the spacecraft, which of course is, you know, it's about as serious, apart from life support, that's like on par with life support. They're both really important. Okay, an additional anomaly. an additional, so is this a separate anomaly? Is it the same or is it different? Led to 5 service module reaction control system thruster fail-offs during the rendezvous. So there's 5 of those. Fantastic. There we go. During the rendezvous and approach to ISS, due to overheating of the thrusters. So we know it's due to overheating of the thrusters, do we? Are we certain that that's what it is? Because that sounds quite certain that that's what it is. Data reviews in real time concluded a loss of redundancy of the thrusters resulted in a temporary loss of Starliner attitude and translational control during the approach within the ISS approach ellipsoid. I mean, that's violating the flight rule to maintain 6 degrees of freedom control inside the ellipsoid. Recovery of the thrusters via ground command hot fires and crew manual flying allowed the Starliner to dock successfully. There we go. So it's making sense now. Crew uncertainty in the predicted performance of the service module reaction control system thrusters led to the decision to undock and return Starliner uncrewed. Following undock, crew module thruster hot fires determined one thruster was failed, causing the crew module to perform re-entry in a zero fault tolerance state. Right, so this is interesting because most of the stuff that I've read on the last few live streams doesn't really talk about the operational decision making about these different states of the spacecraft and the decision making that went on. And I can appreciate maybe this letter explains why they've not talked about that in this report, because maybe they weren't asked to look at it. But it just seems a bit odd that a lot of this stuff isn't. I mean, they discuss the technical stuff earlier on in the report at the very beginning, but they don't really talk about the operational decision making and stakeholder involvement. So I'm sort of anticipating that if we were to use CAST or STPA in this context, we would be able to we'd be able to ask more specific questions of the people that we can interview and understand really what was sort of going on in their minds, why did it make sense, what information was available to support those decisions. And if I recall correctly as well, is the earlier parts of the reports, they seem to focus on SM service module RCS and not really the crew module RCS, which is interesting. I don't know why that would be. One thruster was failed, causing the crew module to perform re-entry in a zero fault tolerance state. So service module, crew module. Is it crew or command module? Crew module. So it's not command module, it's crew module. Right, the crew module propulsion system provides entry attitude control, and loss of redundancy in this system puts safe return of the capsule at risk. So yeah, that's another safety critical system there. NASA and Boeing have formed several teams to continue to investigate the failures that transpired during the CFT. Boeing and NASA have a combined testing, analysis and hardware team that is in the process of defining the hardware, software changes and associated qualification testing and analysis required to resume Starliner missions. So this is the return to flight team. Resume Starliner missions. NASA has instituted a Starliner tests and anomalies review team, STAR team, to examine the deficiencies in the NASA certification process all the way back to early design reviews of the Starliner service module propulsion system. Right, okay, so this answers a lot of questions then. So the STAR team is about the certification process. So that's why this report, the pitch report, doesn't go into that detail. So that answered a big question for me, because I'm like, well, hang on, where is that bit covered? Because it's not apparently covered by this report, so where is it covered? So that's important. Pardon me. A STAR senior review team consisting of senior leaders across the agencies has been chartered to review the progress of the STAR team. Okay. Provide feedback and further areas of interest as the team progresses through their investigation. NASA has initiated a data review. So data review team to examine the real-time flight data from previous orbital flight tests to understand why these anomalies were not detected during the post-flight reviews for these two test missions. So again, the response and recovery part of the control structure is not just for emergencies and abnormal situations. It's also for flight tests. Once you've finished the mission, you need to review the mission and learn what you can from it and feed that back into the design and operations process. Boeing has initiated an enterprise root cause analysis action team, enterprise root cause corrective action team to determine why the Boeing development and testing processes that were utilized for Starliner allowed for these design deficiencies to be present for the CFT. Boeing has also chartered RCCA teams for each in-flight anomaly under review from the CFT mission. So there are a lot of teams. It would be really nice if there was like a team chart, an organization chart, to see how all of these stakeholders fit together and what their control process is, what they're specifically focused on. After discussion with NASA's technical authorities, the ISS program manager and commercial crew program manager, a transition of this work to a NASA independent team was deemed necessary. Okay, fantastic. A transition of this work. So when it says this work, is it all of this, or is it this one, or which bit are we actually talking about? Maybe it'll say in the next paragraph. I'm jumping ahead. In accordance with the ISS Contingency Action Plan, so there we go, that's a document there. The CCP Mishap Preparedness Contingency Action Plan, the NASA Procedural Requirement, and the concurrence of the Space Operations Mission Directorate. The programs are convening a program investigation team using the ISS program work instruction. In response to these events, a cross-reference to NPR 8621.delta is included to demonstrate the completeness of this effort to agency policy. Okay, the scope of the pit is outlined below. Gosh, it's hot today. With the intent to examine the anomalies and causal factors and to provide recommendations. So, examine the anomalies and causal factors and provide recommendations for future Starliner missions and similar NASA missions going forward. So this is more focused on the anomalies than it is on the actual organizational aspects. As defined earlier, a review of the anomalies and their causes has continued post-flight to provide valuable data and insight to the pit. The pit will leverage the work that has already been performed to minimize duplication and preserve limited there we go. Preserve limited resources to enable them to proceed more rapidly to their final report. Miss Blankety Blank will lead the pit team with a deputy to be named at a later date. The pit team will be a NASA-led activity with Boeing participation. As needed, the primary team members will draw on agency expertise and perspective to supplement the team's understanding. The pit will develop an investigation plan for ISS and CCP for approval with the following elements as appropriate. Okay, so before I read this list, the investigation lead and the team, they will create a plan for their investigation, and that plan will cover the topics that are, well, how should we say this? They'll probably have a procedure that describes this is how to do an investigation, and these are the topics that you must cover in your plan. But given all of the other investigations going on, some of those topics, activities might be spread out to other team members. So there needs to be some level of awareness or coordination. But the other thing to be mindful of as well is when you use stamp and cast particularly, and you start to build and draft your control structure and start identifying candidate contributory control actions, it may be that you use that information to actually shape your investigation, maybe update your investigation plan or the work scope, the statement of work that you have. And it's interesting that ISS and CCP need to approve it. I mean, of course, they need to be aware of it, but if there's stuff in there, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I'm just pointing out the importance of thinking about the control structure and how that structure and the way it's sort of put together can affect, either benefit or potentially undermine an investigation. So if the ISS organisation and the CCP organisation are approving the plan, then of course the plan, there's an implied pressure to make sure that plan doesn't go too far into ISS or CCP in a sort of generic sense. But I'd anticipate that the safety culture in those organisations is very open and positive, and they want to learn as much as possible. Because, of course, they don't want to be, spending lots of money and having more accidents, killing people, and all the other expense that's involved in that. They want to get to the bottom. Imagine they want to get to the bottom of it. And so they won't be, making changes to what's in the report or further constraining it so that approval can be provided. I think you know what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to be controversial or anything. I'm just recognising the potential. With the following elements as appropriate. So team membership, fantastic. Yeah, that's what you want. Expected scope. Okay, that's interesting. Planned analysis techniques, fantastic. So is stamp and cast in there? Come on, everybody, let's get that in there. If it's not, then, in the future, let's stick it in there. Stamp, STPA, and cast. There we go. Required resources, schedule, out briefing plans. Not quite sure what that means. Is that briefing to others? I think that was mentioned earlier on. Okay, so the STAR review team will remain in place, advising the STAR team until their report is complete. The STAR senior review team, hang on a minute. Let's just, there we go. Let's just take this for a minute. Let's just pick this up for a minute. Right, so we've got this thing called a Program Investigation Team, PIT. Fantastic. And we've also got some more teams. So we've got the... hang on. I'm going blind. It's there, Simon. Star. It's written there, look, mate. Starliner tests and Anomalies review. Star team. And then we've got the Star senior team, review team. And then we've got Boeing Enterprise Root Cause Corrective Action RCCA team. And then we've got other RCCA teams, so I'll just put an S there. And then we've got, what else have we got? Data review team. Data review team. One, two, three, 4, 5. And then we've got combined testing, analysis, and hardware team. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the pit team as well. Okay, right. Let's keep going then. So the Star team is also requested to advise and guide. Interesting. Advise and guide the crew flight test program investigation team, meeting periodically with the pit leadership to review progress and provide advice as to areas of investigation. The Star Senior Review Team membership may be adjusted as appropriate to assist the CFT pit if requested by the Senior Review Team and approved by the Space Operations Mission Directorate Associate Administrator. The pit will provide a monthly interim brief to SOMDAA and NASA technical authorities. Until its conclusion, the ISS and CCP program managers will have monthly touch points. So monthly brief, monthly touch points, meeting periodically. With the team, and will ensure periodic briefings to affected centre directors. Don't think I've seen that term before in the report. Upon completion of this investigation, which is targeted for no later than May 30th, 2025, the pit will generate a findings report and present it to the program managers for review. Prior to final submission to SOMD and other agency leadership. The scope includes the following. Here we go, everyone. Here's the scope. Let's go. Scope. Number 1. Identify causes and factors that led to the propulsion system in-flight anomalies. including issues from previous flights, programmatic culture, programmatic resources, pre-flight processes, analysis and test plans that led to the go for launch with reduced understanding of system capabilities. Okay, so this bit here, so there's pre-flight processes, analysis and test plans that led to a go for launch with reduced understanding of system capabilities, but it doesn't really go into the detail of that. It kind of mentions stuff, but doesn't seem to go into the detail of it, like who was involved, what the structure was. It kind of talks about it, but it's not really that detailed. It's not really that deep. And maybe I sound like I'm being a bit unfair. If you're used to using stamp and cast, you can go really deep. And this just seems a little bit superficial. But again, that's not a criticism of individuals involved. You know, we use the tools we've got available, and if the tools we use are not quite as precise, you know, laser precise or detailed as, you know, newer methods, then of course we shouldn't be surprised. Develop recommendations for changes to future missions, including, so this is future missions, including certification processes, procedures, testing, and analytical methods, and in-flight operations. Develop a fault tree. It's interesting that that is a specific thing. So develop a fault tree for the helium leak and the SMRCS thruster and crew module thruster issues. So that's 3 fault trees. And they're required by the... Yeah, this is the scope from the agency leadership, SOMD. You do 3 fault trees, please. Interesting. Because doing fault trees is quite a detailed activity, quite a laborious activity in some cases, especially when you're trying to tie lots of things together. And it's interesting that fault tree's been chosen. Yeah, I'd like to understand why fault tree was chosen. Is it in the procedure? Does the procedure say that when you do an investigation, thou shalt do a fault tree? Because I think there are other issues going on here, not just what's been described. I think there's other technical control issues going on. But by focusing 3 fault trees in those 3 areas, you're potentially going to miss them. Well, you are going to miss them, especially if they're not due to failures, which is entirely plausible. With findings in the final report to include as many of the following items as possible. So we've got proximate... In fact, actually, let me just get the jigsaw piece out. Let's get this over here then. So when we talk about proximate causes... In fact, no. Let me get the big jigsaw piece, the bigger bits. This one is the one I want. Let's have a look. Right, so let's just have a look a minute. So when we're talking about proximate causes, are we talking about these bits? Is this all we're talking? In fact, let me use a better pen. Are we talking about stuff to do with the controller, stuff to do with the control path and the actuators? Are we talking about the feedback path, the sensors? Are we talking about the control process? Is that, when we say proximate causes, is that what we're talking about? Or is it that when we say proximate causes, we're referring to this bit only? And when we say immediate causes, we're talking about issues with the controller itself, or to do with its feedback, or to do with inputs from other controllers or other controllers influencing the control process? Are we talking about issues with the control process itself, maybe external disturbances? Pardon me. And when we say contributing factors, are we talking about the behaviour of other controllers? Are we talking about control actions from leadership or feedback to leadership? When we say organisational factors, are we referring to, you know, these bits? Or actually, maybe it's more appropriate to say these bits. Is that what we're talking about? And then observations could be sort of anything. You know, we spotted an issue here, or an issue there, or an issue here, or there's some issues there. You know, whereabouts are we talking about? But I'm just showing, just to give you an idea of the kind of detail you could go to if you wanted to, using the concept of a control structure. And this is just an idealized one. It's not a complete model. It's just to get the creative juices flowing. So let's just move that out of the way. No, don't do that, Simon. There we go. Right, so and recommendations as well. What recommendations do I need to put in? Fantastic. Right. In addition to the technical pre-flight decisions and real-time response factors, assess meeting team organization structure, contractor and contractual relationship, effectiveness in team decision making, and any potential cultural barriers or organizational factors that contributed to the findings. So that is a very broad scope of things to do. That is a lot of work to do. And if we're talking about May 30th, so let's just put that 30th of May, there we go, 25. And they kicked this off on February the 14th. I mean, I'm not being funny, but that is a huge, huge amount of work to do between there and there. I mean, that's just a lot of work. And alongside a full-time job as well, I understand. A lot of the team members were not given time off away from their day job to do this. This was part-time. So all I can say is well done. All of these words, all of this work, very well done. You know, some of my criticisms on the quality of the report in terms of referencing and layout and all that kind of stuff, I completely understand and sympathise with you about it. That is not many weeks at all. And they also had to do 66 interviews. I don't know how big the team was. I mean, maybe they had a huge team to be able to do all of this, but that is a ridiculous amount of work in a ridiculous short space of time. But yeah, okay. The CCP STAR and orbital flight test data review teams. Oh, right. So that's CCP STAR team, and the orbital flight test OFT data review team. Is that right? OFT. Let's have a look in the acronym list. Orbital flight test. Look at that. It is starting to stick in my head. It doesn't just go in one ear and out the other. It's actually starting to stick. Fantastic. Right. Should continue their investigations to a proper conclusion, since those teams have already developed several recommendations that can benefit other programs using a similar fixed price service contract model. Data from those teams will be provided to the pit to inform the pit areas of concentration. You see, the thing is, how can I put this? There are a lot of people doing a lot of investigations, and there is a lot of potential overlap and potential for gaps. So how are they coordinated, and how are agreements reached on who's going to look at what, to what level of detail? You know, what are the boundaries between this work? And that effort to coordinate all of those stakeholders and document stuff and agree stuff and all of that kind of stuff, that's a huge overhead in its own right to any investigation, let alone this complex one. So how did the pit do all of this stuff in that short space of time? And is the conclusions that they've reached deep enough to really make meaningful change for the future? Because I know there's always a leadership pressure. Oh, we need to know the answers now. We need to understand now so we can make changes now. It's too late already. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get to root cause and then move on. And that kind of behaviour is not really conducive to actually understanding the problems, making meaningful changes, and then preventing this kind of nonsense from happening again. You're just rushing into the next disaster. Yeah, I mean, I think, given the level of loss involved and the costs and the damage to the programs and everything else, I think I'd recommend that you spend a bit more time on this and use Stamp, STPA, and CAS like I keep banging on about, because you'll be able to go so much further. And I can understand that time is of the essence. You know, there's only so much time before the ISS gets retired, and there's all the contractual stuff. Totally get that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it requires pulling on the big boy trousers and making tough decisions. And rushing into the next one, I don't think is a good idea. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. It's just this particular investigation, the window through which I'm looking, gives the impression that they're just going to try and rush through it as quick as they can. But of course, there's all these other investigations that are going on that I don't have visibility of. So maybe they are taking their time and doing things systematically. I'm sure they are going through stuff systematically and doing some great work. There's no criticism of that. Fantastic. Data from these teams will be provided to the pit to inform the pit areas of concentration. The pit investigation will require support from multiple organisations and should engage resources from various NASA centres and Boeing necessary. Please cooperate fully with this investigation and provide any technical data, expertise, or other support to this investigation. Fantastic. Amazing. Thank you, sir, for that. Okay, right. So we've got this blankety blank. Don't know what it is. I think it's the list of names, the distribution list. And then we've got this bit here. So we've got the NPR 8621.1 Delta process, which... Oh, why does it keep doing that? Come on, stop jumping around. There we go. So it's these documents here. It's this one. Let's just take that over there. And we need an arrow, because of course we do. Let's use that one. Copy, paste. And we need it to go there. It's the wrong way round, but it doesn't matter. There we go. Right, and then this goes to NPR 8621, which, if I remember correctly, I might have got this reference over here. NPR, no, it's not that one. I'm confused. It might be this one then instead. Yeah, there we go. That's the one. NPR. So this is the NASA procedural requirements for mishap and close call reporting, investigation, and record keeping updated with change 4. So this was 1 Delta, and it expires the end of this year. Compliance is mandatory for NASA employees. Fantastic. So this is a 122-page process on basically what to do in the event of, and I've not looked into it in any detail. I don't sort of anticipate doing so at this stage, or I'm not expecting to. Okay, so these are the different sections included in the proposed HVCC pit. Is this helium? I don't know. What is HVCC? Gosh, it's hot. HV. Oh, there it is. High visibility close. Ah, that's what it is. High visibility close call. That's what it means. So if we go to here and we type this in here, and then we do HVCC pit. PIT. There we go. Right, we know what that is now. So we've got Chapter 2, Mishap Response, Notification and Classifications. Chapter 3, Investigation Authority and Investigation Support. Chapter 4, Mishap Investigation Process. So that's how they do it. So it might be worth having a look at that, actually. Pardon me. Chapter 5, Mishap Investigation Report. So that might explain why this report is structured the way it is. Chapter 6, Post-Investigation Activities, Corrective Action Plan. Oh, that's important. There we go. Contents Review, Implementation, Monitoring and Closeout, Investigation Activities, Conclusion, Evidence Recording and Retention. The PIT will provide recommendations and SOMD and CCP will develop an action plan based on available resources. That's interesting. Okay. So they have got the responsibility to do the action plan. Okay. Okay. Investigation Authority and Investigation Support. And then Chapter 2, Mishap Response, Notification and Classification. Okay. So they're not applicable. Okay, interesting. Partial, no legal, no PAO, yes to NSC specialist. No non-NASA participants. No non-NASA participants. Appointment letter content, so that's this letter presumably. Mishap investigation analyst, site safety and evidence preservation, evidence and fact gathering. Yeah. Other investigation types, including real-time decision making. Okay. Investigation report. Yeah. Corrective action plan. No, because they're going to do it. Sorry, they are going to do it. So this really should say SOMD plus CCP does this. Okay. Okay, right. So that section is completed. It's 17:56 local time. So we've made good progress through there. What I'm going to suggest we do is we take a sort of 2-minute, 5-minute break, and then we'll start on the Star investigation team report. Yeah, I've just noticed as well that this mentions the Starliner Test Anomalies Review Investigation Team, the STAR team, and the Starliner Data Review Team. So they are related to these. There we go, Starliner Data. Is this the same? Is this the Starliner Data Review Team? I think that one and that one, I think. So let's copy those. Let's go down to here, stick them on there. Let's have a look. So this was May 2025. In fact, no, I'm jumping into it. Let's have a quick 2 minutes, 5 minute. Let's have a 5-minute break, and then we'll crack back on. Yep. Okay. Right. How do I do this? There we go. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. We'll just grab a drink and some refreshments. Hello, welcome back. It is really hot in this room. I need air conditioning. Right, what I was thinking of doing is to save a bit of time on future live streams. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to, let's just mark off, we've just done this one. So this is the investigation team chartering memo we've just completed. And what I think we should also do is quickly do the last two appendices, Appendix H, Boeing ERCCA summary, and then the Appendix I, just quickly, because they're only a couple of pages, as you'll see in a second. So we can do those now. Pardon me. And then we can jump into Appendix H with gusto, both feet. Right. So here's Appendix H. One page. And it's blankety blank, so we don't know. So the Boeing RCCA, we don't know anything about that. And again, I wouldn't anticipate that they'd release that stuff publicly anyway. But of course, if you work for Boeing, if you're part of the team, if you want some help with Stamp, STPA or CAST, please send me a message and we'll see how I can possibly help. So Appendix H, we've done that. Let's mark that off. There we go, done. See, that was easy, wasn't it? Look at that. We're making rapid progress. Right, let's do Appendix I as well. Oh, look, it's only one page. Fantastic. Let's see if we can do that to get that done. Right, so this is the senior review panel response to the investigation team report. So if we just jump back to where we were, sorry. There we go. So we were talking about there we go, the STAR senior review team. Where is it? No. Hang on a second. Oh, there it is. The STAR senior review team is requested to advise and guide the crew flight test program investigation team. So let's just take a copy of that. So the question I have from a control structure perspective, let's make these boxes a bit smaller, shall we? There we go. So is the program so conceptually in terms of the hierarchy, is the STAR senior team on the same sort of level as the program investigation team? So they don't have authority over the team, or are they kind of above it a bit, providing support and feedback? Because it does say the senior team will remain in place advising the STAR team until their report is complete. But the STAR senior review team is also requested to advise and guide the CFT pit. So advise could be like that, or guide could be slightly above, if you know what I mean. Providing control actions, perhaps, as opposed to just information and suggestions. So yeah, that's what I'm just. So this letter that we're just about to look at, I'll just take those and put them over here and take that and copy it. Oh, there we go. Right, if I go back down here now. There we go, this here. So if I paste this on the right-hand side. So is this the STAR senior review team making suggestions to the pit investigation team? Is that what this report is? Or is it just the response from this team to the SOMD, the senior? I think it is, yeah, look, Space Operations Mission Directorate. Let's just duplicate that for a second. Right, so we've got the Space Operations Mission Directorate, SOMD. So that's, where are they? This one. No, that one. Paste. there we go. So the Associate Administrator, Space Operations Mission Directorate. There we go. And this is December, let me zoom in a bit so you can see it better. December 31st, 2025. 31st December 2025. So this is timing information. So let's just mark that. And that correlates with this. So this was February 2025. The report was expected 30th of May 2025. But yeah, this one was 31st of December 2025. So the 6 to 7 months or so, well, 6 months or so post the report was supposed to be due. So, pardon me, let's just write that. Pardon me. Okay, so a senior review panel has participated in the SOMD's program investigation team. The PIT was chartered to investigate the technical, organizational, and cultural contributions to the anomalies occurring during CST 100. Well, it was also the decision to launch as well. Review panel members were blankety blank, which is perfectly fine. The panel has participated regularly with the PIT, including an overview of the investigation process, review of interim products and findings, and providing feedback along the way. The PIT final report is a comprehensive and sobering assessment of the technical, organizational, and cultural challenges that impacted the mission. While the technical course investigation continues, the recommendations related to culture and organization, which can drive technical outcomes, are both necessary and timely. Our panel endorses the PIT methodology and recommendations as actionable. Fantastic. So I think it may be that, in fact, if we go to the front page on this report, there we go. So this was the 5th of the 2nd. There we go, 5th of the 2nd. I just write it in English so I don't get confused. Right, here we go. 5th of February 2026. Okay, so this then may be the final report. The 30th of May, this one may be the initial report. Or it may be that at the time this letter was written in February, the 30th of May is an aiming point, but they recognise that things might get complicated and difficult and take more time. So it may be that between this being written in February 25 and the deadline of 30th of May, they might have said, well, let's extend it to December. And that's what this report, this date is. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just trying to get an idea of my mind of the size and scale of the investigation and the effort involved. So this panel would advise to adjudicate all 61 recommendations proactively and transparently. Fantastic. We like the sound of that. And to use this as an opportunity to examine areas which might benefit from change. A plan for the road to the next Starliner missions and a spacecraft certification plan. Yeah, I mean, that should be, published and in use, I'm sure. That allows for incorporating learning from the investigations are not yet in place. Okay. The lack of these plans raises concerns that the lessons from the CFT will be not incorporated in the spacecraft and operations associated with follow-on missions. A thorough SOMD review and action plan for the recommendations is warranted. Yeah, okay. This panel also supports that the event be retroactively classified as a Type A mishap and that the pit report serve as the final mishap investigation report. Okay. I agree with that. I'm not quite sure that's adequate enough, but with the context, as we've already discussed, I can appreciate why that would be recommended. But I don't think it goes far enough. I think there needs to be a tying together of all of the other stuff going on. And of course, I'd recommend using Stamp, STPA, and CAS to help with that. Because there's so much more we could learn from this, I think. In doing so, this adds the rigor and communication that events like this deserve, and then rigor, and ensure archiving for the benefit of lessons and learn for future missions. Like I said, I think the rigor of this looks good, but they'd get so much further by using the stamp-based approaches. So I think, I think looking forwards, that's the direction I'd suggest that they go in. I can understand the reluctance and stuff, but we really need to get a hold of this. This is a big opportunity. The pit final report is a vital document that captures the complexity of integrating commercial systems into human spaceflight. I think it does, but it's not deep enough. It kind of touches on it, but it doesn't go deep enough. It balances technical rigor with organizational introspection and offers actionable recommendations. Yeah, it does, but there could be much more specific ones than, well, we need to train people and make sure they're updated. We could find some really, really much more specific ones using Stamp. The lessons from the crew flight test must be institutionalized, not only within NASA and Boeing, but across the broader commercial space flight ecosystem. Safety, transparency, and accountability must remain paramount. Yes, especially as NASA continues to rely on commercial partners for crewed missions. The panel encourages SOMD to promptly distribute the report, at a minimum, to the NASA administrator, the associate administrator, they're the one who commissioned the investigation, the mission director AAs, don't know, center directors, human spaceflight program managers, and technical authorities. This concludes the senior review panel activities, although panel members will stay engaged from our respective domains. Fantastic. Okay, I mean, that's good. Nice bit of feedback. Okay, so now we've done that, let's just quickly jump over here. So, right, so we've done Appendix I. So that is now done, everybody. Fantastic. Right, okay, so the only thing left to do in this live stream series is the Starliner data review team report, which is about 104 pages. 104, Simon. It says there. It's 104 pages. And obviously that's quite a lot. And of this report, 311 pages, we've now done 195. So we've got 104 or so to go. And so I'm anticipating, based on the amount of time we've spent so far going through this, to get through this Appendix G is going to be it's going to be a couple of live streams at least. So the live streams I've scheduled for Thursday and Friday this week, if you go to the free workshop on my website or visit my YouTube channel, live stream 28 and 29, they're going to be extended. They're going to be a good couple of hours, so we can get a good go at it, and get, make some good progress. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the beginning. I mean, it is 6:20. I suppose we could pull stumps there and then attack this fresh on Thursday. and then keep moving through it. I think that would be a good... Well, I suppose I could introduce the document now, and then we can get stuck into it on Thursday. Let's do that. Let's do that. So this is the Appendix G, the Crew Commercial Program, Starliner. What does it mean? I can't remember. Starliner Tests and Anomalies Review Team report. There we go. So let's just put that there so we remember. So SDRT is the Starliner Data Review Team. SDRT. And then that's the Starliner team. There we go. That's it. Let's just go back to there and stick it in because I'll forget otherwise. There we go. SDRT, and it's the same on this one as well, isn't it? There we go. Right. So we've got the Star Investigation Team SDRT final report. So both of those teams, combine them together. And then that's the final report. Then we've got the CUI Star Investigation Team. No idea what that is. CUI Star Investigation Team and Starliner Data Review Team Lessons Learned Briefing. Then we've got the Lessons Learned presentation. If you cannot access any of the above links, please enter through the NEN Lessons Learned to allow your NASA certificate to be recognized. Please share as desired within NASA. So I'm expecting that we're not going to be able to access those. In fact, if we go to here, zoom out, let's just have a go. Appendix G, isn't it? There we go. Yeah, so these hyperlinks are broken, so we can't use those. Fantastic. Right, so let's have a look then. So we've got Crew Commercial Program, John F. Kennedy Space Center. Okay, so that's where it's located, presumably. Crew Commercial Program, Starliner Tests and Anomalies Review Team, Investigation Team, Starliner Data Review Team, report May 2025. Fantastic. There we go. So that is... let's burn this into my brain. 2025. Right, so this is 2025, not 2026, because obviously that's after when this report was... yeah, so that's 30th of May 25. That's when the pit team was expected to get the report out. Completion of the investigation by 30th of May. So then they've got to write the report. This was on the 20th of May, so this report is prior to then. And then that says 15th of July. So we had it for a couple of months. So let's have a look. So this person is the chair, and they are the Deputy Manager Commercial Crew Program. Okay, so if you imagine a control structure for the investigation, you've got the Star Investigation Team Chair, who is that person. And then in terms of the operational control structure or the program control structure for the Starliner, you've got the Deputy Manager Crew Commercial Program. Now, I'm not sure from my lay perspective whether that person is in the Starliner part of the program, or whether they are outside the Starliner part. So they're not necessarily going to be unduly influenced or anything dodgy like that. Not that they would be, but you know, we always have to be mindful of that as part of an investigation. Then we've got the chair SDRT. So they are the Senior Technical Integration Manager Crew Commercial Program. So again, same question for them. Are they in the Starliner tent or are they on the outside of it? And then we've got this other person who is the Manager Crew Commercial Program. So again, same question. Same question, is that they are part of the Crew Commercial Program? Is that going to potentially influence things? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Maybe it's a rhetorical question. But whenever we do any kind of investigation, we always have to be mindful of that potential. especially when something like this of this magnitude has occurred. So I would be interested to know a bit more, and maybe they'll address that in the sections of the report. They'll put my concerns to rest, perhaps. But then the name of the team is CCP Starliner Test Anomalies Review Team. So is it a crew commercial program team or is it a Starliner team? I think you understand what I'm getting at. I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but I just want to make sure the integrity of the investigation is maintained. That's an amazing picture, that, isn't it? Look at that. That is fantastic. Wow. And then you've got the Starliner plonked on top. How cool is that? Fantastic. Right, let's have a look. Look at that. That's really cool. Oh, there's the crew. Wilmore and Williams going to the ISS. That's cool. Right. Starliner Test Anomalies Review Investigation Report. Commercial Crew Program. Internal Program Investigation. So first off, internal program investigation. So the star bit is internal to the program. So is it internal to the Starship bit of the program, or is it the commercial crew program? Am I just being a bit pedantic, or is there something there we need to be mindful of? Okay, so there's an executive summary. Well, I'm kind of doing what I want to do on Thursday, but I want to get stuck in. I don't want to go waiting. Let's do the executive summary now. Let's get it done. Executive summary. Right, background. This person, former NASA Associate Administrator. This person, Space Operations Mission Directorate Associate Administrator. And this person, Crew Commercial Program Manager, commissioned the Starliner. So they're the people that said, look, we need to do a Starliner anomaly investigation team. There it is. So it's as an internal CCP investigation, led by this person. That was to identify any lessons learned regarding initial certification approaches that could have prevented propulsion system anomalies. So it's all about the propulsion system anomalies experienced during the crew flight test. So is it constrained to just the issues during crewed flight test, or is it also those issues that existed in the previous two flight tests? And then we've got blankety blank. No idea what that is. Okay. The purpose of this report is to provide the results of the internal crew commercial program investigation. So it is an internal investigation. And the way that they talk about internal investigation, that leads me to think that CCP and Starliner as a program, it is one in the same. It's just the Starliner bit of the crew commercial program. That's how I've interpreted it. I could be wrong. Of Starliner key anomalies identified during CFT. So what about the issues before the CFT? What about the issues in the OFT? The team was charged to address such questions during the evaluations and interviews. Opportunity for NASA identification of missed failure tolerance assessment and consideration related to deorbit burn impacts in consideration of the helium system within each doghouse. Opportunities for NASA identification of missed service module RCS thruster qualification gap and the closure of those gaps during the thruster qualification timeframe. Opportunities for NASA identification of inadequately defined service module doghouse thermal environment and the closure of those gaps in the qualification timeframe. Ascertain if these propulsion items were not identified during execution of required PDR. or CDR, or subsystem reviews. Qual testing, integrated service module, hot fire testing, hazard report reviews, and or certification reviews, post-mission reviews. Yeah, I mean, that is a really important question. Okay, so there's some technical stuff and then some organizational process related stuff. Okay, results, findings, notable items uncovered during the documentation interview process. Recommendations, explicit for commercial crew to implement before the next flight or as practical. Lessons learned, external value to other NASA programs. Fantastic. Okay, well, let's just have a quick look at the table of contents and then we'll leave this till Thursday. So first off, and again, it may be just because the people who wrote the PIT report copied and pasted the content of this report into their own Microsoft Word formatting and numbering and bullets and all that nonsense is broken. But it is really helpful to have numbered sections and properly indented and all that stuff to really help people understand the structure of the report. So we've got investigative methods. That'll be interesting. I doubt they'll have used STAMP, STPA, or CAS, but if they have, that'll be fantastic. I'll be surprised. That'll be amazing. Parallel CFT investigative efforts, summary of the Starliner CFT, commercial crew program background, acquisition strategy, certification strategy, commercial crew metrics and decision structure, commercial crew timelines, focused CFT, SM, propulsion, anomalies timelines. So these timelines will be very, very helpful for context. And this is one of the things that you have to create. Pardon me, I would recommend you create as part of doing any cast analysis because you need a timeline view of things to try and understand how things fit together in terms of time and proximity in time. Then we've got general findings, acquisition strategy and contracts, communication and interaction, requirements, design testing and hardware build. Then we've got recommendations and lessons learned, recommendations, lessons learned. Then we've got a section on helium issues. Then we've got a section on thermal. Then we've got a section on service module, reaction control system, and OMAC. Gosh, I should know that by now. Come on, Si. What is OMAC? Orbital maneuvering and attitude control. There we go. That's what that is. I've nearly remembered it. Right, where's my grey box? There we go. That one. Stick it over here. OMAC. Paste. Orbital maneuvering and attitude control. OMAC. There we go. Right. Then we've got Starliner data review team report. So that's about the data. So that'll be interesting because that will help us to flesh out the interactions between the ground control team or the flight test team and the spacecraft, and maybe even about spacecraft design decisions. So that'll be interesting. Then we've got the Star review panel, senior review panel. There we go. So that's the panel we were talking about earlier on. Then we've got conclusions. So we've got the STAR summary, the SDRT summary. They're on one page. That's interesting. And then we've got 6 appendices. So acronyms, interviews, relevant documents, safety process, raw timeline data, commercial crew transportation capabilities contracts, and then government insight, and then a table of figures. While we're at it, let's just quickly go to section 283. Let's just zoom out and have a look at 283. Where is it? 283. There we go. So that's the conclusions page. Should we be naughty and just read the conclusions while we're at it? I think we should. While we're at it, let's just quickly do the conclusions. Let's come on, computer, wake up. There we go. Let's put this over here. Let's have a look. Right, conclusions. So the STAR summary. Let's put a nice big. So STAR summary: commercial crew accepted risks. So I'm presuming that's the program management who are doing this investigation report. Are they? Commercial crew accepted risks in the service module propulsion system and the crew module propulsion system that were not fully understood prior to crew flight test. These risks included variances to requirements and unexplained anomalies from previous flight tests. There were no unstated technical concerns among the NASA team during the commit to flight process, but there was a shared underestimation of the likelihood of future thruster failures. No unstated technical concerns. Okay. Improvements to commercial partner provider interaction early in design phase could have enhanced the technical capability. Enhanced the technical capability. Okay. I mean, the first thing to say about that one sentence is that if you were using STPA on your program and your suppliers, contractors were using it, the control structure would be explicit from a system product service perspective and also an organizational perspective. So you can make sure those interactions are appropriate to start with before you actually go and do a lot of this stuff. So that's, you know, an opportunity to make huge benefits in the future using STAMP and STPA. Anyway, SDRT summary. There were many opportunities to find system susceptibility to elevated temperature and high duty cycle usage. In both the OFT-1 and OFT-2 missions, a fundamental and seemingly clear root cause was found. Interesting. And all team effort and energy was focused on resolving those issues. So that's the mission elapsed time anomaly. So that is interesting. And the failure detection, isolation, and recovery. Is that FDIR? Depends on which document you look at. FDIR, where is it? Fault detection, isolation reports. Okay, there we go. So there's two different definitions there. These believed root causes masked the opportunity to learn from how the hardware behaved when operated at the edge of its envelope. Additional testing to explore these higher temperature operation conditions could have led to finding of the poppet swell issue prior to the CFT mission. But it says additional testing. Is it that when we say additional testing, does that mean more than we intended to do? Or is it more than was specified? And if it was more than specified, is it because the specification was inadequate and it should have been in there in the first place? And if so, why? Why was that not dealt with? Okay. Of course, hindsight is always 20/20. Yes, it is. And cost and schedule realities make it difficult to go far beyond the clear root cause. Teams should evaluate which what their impacts failures have had on hardware to help mitigate undiscovered issues moving forwards. Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we've made good progress today. I think we've done really, really well. Those conclusions are a bit thin on the ground, but they do shed more light on what's already been discussed. So what we'll do is we'll pick up on Thursday. I think. Oh, hang on, let's just check. What time on Thursday? So Thursday at 5 p.m. UTC +1, 1700 hours. And we're going to go for a good couple of hours, maybe 2-3 hours, a long session with maybe a few breaks in it. And see where we get to. Well, thank you very much for watching. And I will see you on Thursday's session. Have a good evening. Take care.